It's the Resistance Report for January 22nd, 2018, where we give you the big picture. Tonight, what's really behind the government shutdown, or what was behind it, and today's agreement to keep it funded for 17 more days, where we're likely to go in the future, and Trump and the Republicans' larger game. Let's get to it. The federal government is open again, at least for another 17 days, but the funding doesn't include legislation to protect young undocumented immigrants, known as dreamers, from deportation, nor any specific guarantee of a vote on such protection. Mitch McConnell merely said that he intended to have such a vote. Well, intentions, and McConnell's intentions in particular, are not worth very much. I mean, he said he intended to have a vote along with border security. I doubt the Democrats can trust McConnell, who during November's tax debates won the votes of wavering Republicans by promising extra funding for Medicaid and a speedy vote on immigration. You think he has delivered on either of these? No. You trust McConnell like you trust a lizard, right? Now, Trump has been president for a year. Tens of thousands marched this weekend against him. Two-thirds of the nation disapproves of Trump. Well, what does that mean? How does he keep his power? Why do Republican members of Congress stick by him? Because Trump stokes bigotry, racism, and xenophobia and electrifies the base. Yesterday, for example, Trump tweeted, "The Dems just want illegal immigrants to pour into our nation unchecked." And also yesterday, the executive director of Trump's campaign, a fellow named Michael Glasner. Have you heard of Michael Glasner? I hadn't heard of Michael Glasner, but he's the executive director of the Trump campaign. He lauded Trump for keeping Americans safe from what he called evil, illegal immigrants who commit violent crimes against lawful U.S. citizens. This is called fear-mongering, friends. On Saturday, Trump's re-election campaign aired an ad claiming Democrats who oppose Trump's demand for a border wall will be complicit in every murder committed by illegal immigrants. Now, I want you to have a look at this ad.
That's illegal immigrant Luis Bracamontes, charged with murdering 2 police officers. It's pure evil. President Trump is right. Build the wall. Deport criminals. Stop illegal immigration now. Democrats who stand in our way will be complicit in every murder committed by illegal immigrants. President Trump will fix our border and keep our families safe.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Yesterday, some Republicans, including those working for Trump in the White House, tried to distance themselves from this incendiary ad. Here's Mark Short, the Trump White House's Director of Legislative Affairs, talking to NBC's Chuck Todd.
You know that ad is produced by an outside group and not those of us in the White House.
Donald J. Trump for president is an outside group?
Let me talk about...
Wait. Donald J. Trump for president is an outside group?
Hello? Unbelievable. Let's take another look at the last few seconds of that ad.
Keep our families safe.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
The ad was produced by Donald J. Trump. Those are the words, for president. Donald J. Trump for president. The ad concludes with Trump saying, "I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message." And then there's a photo of Trump with his 2 thumbs up. This ad, the entire Trump campaign for president, comes out of the White House. That's where it is, its locus is. Steve Bannon may be gone from the White House, but policy advisor Stephen Miller, you remember Stephen Miller? Miller continues to be the source of that xenophobic, racist rant, that strategy. Now, never before has a sitting president launched such a racist attack. Airing such a heinous ad to win a battle in Congress is something completely new. Frankly, it is revolting. I mean, presidents used to assume that their job was to bring America together, didn't they? Don't you remember presidents, even presidents you may not have liked before? They at least understood at some level of their cerebral cortex that they were supposed to be a uniting force in America. This man is putting out ads and saying things designed to sow division, chaos. Donald Trump lives off of conflict. He always has lived off of conflict. He's going to have a State of the Union January 30th, a State of the Union by Donald Trump. He is creating disunion more than any other president in living memory, perhaps ever. Yesterday, Senator Lindsey Graham renewed his criticism of White House aides' handling of immigration. He singled out Miller. As long as Stephen Miller is in charge of negotiating immigration, we're going nowhere, Graham told reporters. Well, Graham might have also added that Miller is part of Trump's brain. Trump's divisive brain. And let's be clear, it's not just the Dreamers. Trump and the Republicans are also demanding an end to what they call chain migration. Chain migration. It's what we used to call family reunification. Chain migration, family reunification, it's the way our entire immigration system has been organized for more than a half century. It allows legal citizens to sponsor family members coming here from abroad. That was the 1965 Immigration Act. Now, let me ask you something. Do you really think Trump and the GOP would be against what they call chain migration, family reunification? I love this word, chain migration. I mean, it sounds horrible, doesn't it? Would they be against chain migration, family reunification, if most family members being reunited with their American relatives were white Western Europeans? Of course not. They're against it because so many family members from abroad are black or brown. They are coming from places Trump calls shitholes, pardon the expression. Instead, Trump and the Republicans want a system based on what they call merit. Now, what do they mean by merit? What does merit actually mean? You know, bring me, you're poor, you're tired, you're struggling, humble masses yearning to be breathed free. No, merit. Presumably, they mean white people coming from places like Norway, as if Norwegians wanted to come here to the United States. The Trump administration has also fired up fear-mongering at the Department of Justice, used the Justice Department as a place to actually fuel more fear. Last week, the department released a report entitled Protecting the Nation from Foreign Terrorist Entry into the United States. This report, by the way, was mandated by Trump's March 6th executive order that reestablished a travel ban targeting 6 Muslim-majority countries. The press release for this report said, an analysis conducted by DHS, Department of Homeland Security, concluded that 73%, this is what the Justice Department says, an analysis by DHS, that's the Department of Homeland Security, concludes that 73% of terrorists were foreign-born. And according to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, in his own press release, this report reveals an indisputable, sobering reality. Our immigration system has undermined our national security and public safety, citing the report's figures to support the administration's push for a merit-based system that ends the use of diversity visas and chain migration. But here's the thing. It turns out that the DHS analysis, the analysis that supposedly found that 73% of the terrorist acts in the United States come from foreigners, that had nothing to do With the report's conclusion, DHS's own analysts didn't participate. And the report, by the way, it lumped all sorts of crimes together. Not just terrorism, but every other crime. And it includes an unknown number of defendants who were extradited to the United States from overseas and so aren't really immigrants in any practical sense of the term. And the report excludes defendants who were convicted of domestic terrorism during the same time period. People like Taylor Michael Wilson. You remember him, a 26-year-old white nationalist from Missouri who had expressed an interest in killing black people? He's not even included. Now, Wilson allegedly tried to stop an Amtrak train in a remote part of Nebraska last October while armed with a handgun, but federal law considers domestic terrorism a second-class threat and doesn't criminalize all forms of politically motivated violence, so it didn't even make it into this report. That 75% figure is completely and totally and unadulteratedly bogus. Dreamers are just pawns in this game of hate. Trump and Republican politicians repeatedly claim they support Dreamers' protections in principle, but then they turn around and reject every actual proposal to protect the Dreamers. More than 16,000 Dreamers have already lost DACA protection from deportation. You know, I'm a professor here at Berkeley. Every week I get a student here, an undergraduate student, among the best students here at Berkeley. They come in tears, with tears in their eyes. I'm going to be deported, or I will be deported, or I don't have any future here. McConnell, his 17-day continuing resolution and his vague commitment to consider the DREAM Act is just more of the same. It is baloney. It is rubbish. Republicans say they don't like anything that sounds like amnesty for these young people. But look, the Dreamers had no role in coming to the United States. They came here as small children. I mean, how can you talk about amnesty for small children? They didn't do anything wrong. You really want to talk about amnesty? Republicans just granted amnesty to American corporations that knowingly and intentionally parked their money abroad to avoid U.S. taxes. They created a tax holiday. This year is a tax holiday. It's an amnesty. Bring your money. We forgive you. We forgive you. So if it's fine to give corporations a huge tax break, that amnesty, to bring their money home this year, why isn't it okay to give these kids who know no home other than the United States a fair shot at becoming Americans? And if you believe that Mitch McConnell is actually going to do that, I've got a bridge that I'd like to sell you. Throughout history, tyrants have clung to power by vilifying and demonizing groups considered to be dangerous. It's happened before. Make no mistake. What's going on now is about demonizing others. Mexicans, Muslims, people of color. If a government shutdown meant billionaires and corporations would not get their tax cuts, I can assure you Trump and Republicans would be in overdrive to keep the government open not just 17 days, but forever. History will show that Trump and his congressional Republicans have entered into a very cynical game. They are giving, even while they fuel hate, they're giving their biggest backers, the billionaire oligarchs of America, CEOs of large corporations, Wall Street, they're giving them huge tax breaks, repeals of regulations. Just 13 days after the House passed the tax bill, Charles Koch and his wife gave nearly $500,000 to Paul Ryan's joint fundraising committee. Of the roughly $5 million Ryan has got in this quarter, more than $330,000 arrived in the 2 days after the House passed the tax bill. I mean, talk about bribery. But Trump, Ryan, and other Republican leaders are hiding their work for America's oligarchies and the Kochs and the CEOs of big companies and Wall Street. They're hiding it by using bigotry to convince Trump supporters he's actually one of them. I mean, for example, this campaign against immigrants. What do you think it's about? It's It's a front. Or all of this business right now, letting health workers opt out of providing health care for women who want abortions, or bakers opt out of baking wedding cakes for gay couples, or states decide Medicaid recipients who are disproportionately black or brown must work even though no one has ever decided not to work because they have Medicaid. Medicaid helps people get to work. Do you see the pattern here? It's an economic policy designed for oligarchs and a social policy based on fear, designed to keep Trump and Republicans in power. But you know something? It's not going to work, because the vast majority of us are neither oligarchs nor are we bigots. And we can see through this. We can see the indecency of this, the cynicism of this. And like we just saw over the weekend with the women's marches across the country, we are not going to accept this. Please, commit yourself to containing this utter calamity by flipping Congress next November 6th, and then removing Trump from office, legally, nonviolently, but doing it no later than 2020, hopefully before then, and then setting the nation on a course of widening democracy, shared prosperity. Don't close your ears or eyes to what is happening. Try to stay positive. Embrace your loved ones. Spread the truth. Keep up the fight. And now for your questions. John Lewis Smith, now that Democrats have caved on the shutdown, what leverage, if any, do they still have? Well, they still have the 60-vote leverage. I mean, Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump urged Mitch McConnell to get rid of all of that. But Mitch McConnell and the Senate, at least for the time being, still require 60 votes for major legislation, and the Republicans don't have 60. They've got 51, so they've got to rely on Democrats for that. But it is disappointing. Josh Potash, why do Democrats seem to be so much worse at political maneuvering and messaging than the Republicans? Josh, partly because the Republicans do have, a messenger in chief. I mean, Donald Trump is a marketer. He knows how to get attention. He knows how to say things that are going to not only sow conflict and chaos and division, but also make sure people hear them. I mean, he's this whole business of tweeting. Every time somebody, and I do it, but every time somebody repeats a tweet, that's another way of getting the message out. The Democrats don't have a messenger. And even if the Democrats had a messenger, they don't have a clear and concise message. I mean, being kind and decent and fair and good, that's fine. But the Democrats need a sharp message. And we can talk about that. I can't talk about it right now. We don't have time. But I have done some thinking about that. Melissa Carr, would new candidates who run as progressives be a better choice than a Democratic candidate? Wouldn't it be a challenge for a progressive to work with the two major parties? Melissa, I guess what you're suggesting here is that we have a progressive party. And I think that's a damn good idea, but I don't think the Progressive Party ought to run its own candidate separate from the Democratic Party, because that would just drain off votes from the Democratic Party. But we could have a progressive party that pushed the Democratic Party in the right direction, a progressive party that was like the Tea Party on the right, but was actually doing things that were in the interest of all Americans, rather than a small sliver of Americans. Finally, we've got Jane McEntee. Will any Republican take on Trump in the GOP primaries? Jane, I think Mitt Romney is going to take on Trump. I think Mitt Romney is going to win the Senate race in Utah, and then Mitt Romney is going to be the alternative, the anti-Trump in the Republican primaries. And I'm willing to bet almost anything on that. It will be interesting to see how Mitt Romney does against Donald Trump. Romney is much smarter than Trump, but Trump is, in terms of marketing, in terms of just saying stuff that is simple and gets into, I mean, Trump is going to possibly get into Romney's skin, under his skin. It'd be an interesting thing to see. And when we get to the point of talking about candidates for the Democratic nomination, whether it's Joe Biden or it is Bernie Sanders again, or it is Oprah or anybody else, bear in mind that the real question is, who are they up against? If they're up against Mitt Romney, it's an entirely different conversation than if they are up against Donald Trump. Again, I want to thank Andrew Santana and Sasha Lightman, and I want to thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.